they had elevated morally. You dig what I'm saying? And they brought the rest of the world along with them. And I think, you know what I mean, we should acknowledge that at least. You know what I
All
mean?
right, so so
But
if
I
we
know
let's
y'all gonna have a
constrain.
hard time with that. I know
Man,
y'all gonna have a hard time with that.
bro, do me a favor. Whenever Chef get back,
Oh man,
whenever I don't know who this nigga is that's here, but whenever Chef get back, I'm gonna cuss him out for
when did you when
whoever
did
the
you
hell
come to
you
this?
are.
Were you what did you pretty much
Look,
always kind of have these this viewpoint, Chef, or is this like a recent epiphany you had?
No, I've been saying this in bits and pieces for years. You dig what I'm saying? One of the big components of me arguing about Nzinga was, I had highlighted some of that also, right? And Sean and them had threw tomatoes at me. You dig what I'm saying? Because when I brought that component up, and no man, leave me
Yeah, but
alone.
like they did
Go
a
ahead.
lot of them African kingdoms and empires at that time is after they kind of played both sides against the middle,
Yes.
supplied them with guns and all of that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them empires became like wholly dependent on slavery, like their whole economy. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that was them spinning the block. And I know you know enough about history to know, like it was calculation. Like they spun the block on them kingdoms that was dependent on slavery, and it's the same reason why Lincoln did it to the South. Like them them abolishing slavery, because if you have an entire region, right, and you want to bring them into the fold, and you trying to get them to capitulate, you can't do that while they are economically viable without having to be a part of the central government. So you got to cut off their means of economy. So how much stock do you put in that argument? Like, do you think that weighed into their them sending out the emissaries and actually fighting wars to abolish the thing? Um, how much do you factor that in,
So,
if
so,
any of that?
so the first thing is when you look at some of their initial arguments, you'll see the evolution of it, right? Once they declared that all men uh was born free, right? That was something that they decreed for themselves, right? Then they started to extend that same thing to themselves. Right? I mean, outwardly, because it became a contradiction almost. They questioned themselves. We can read it. You dig what I'm saying? Once they said that, all British citizens are free, all British human beings, and then they started to go further with it. You feel me? So it was step by. What's up, G? It was step by step. You know what I mean? Then they said anybody who steps foot on British soil is free. You dig what I'm saying? Because once they said that they was free, then they said, okay, well, we're bringing people here in chains. That's a contradiction. Okay, well, anybody who stepped foot on British soil is free. You dig what I'm saying? And then it constantly, so it was an evolution. Yeah, I mean, this is just per history. You know what I mean? Like, what were we supposed to deny that? You know what I mean? Then once they felt as though they had the money and the power to try to persuade other people outside of Britain that slavery was wrong, did that too. That's moral, yo. That's a moral component there.
That's crazy. I don't think any government,
I believe
any whether
there was,
black, go ahead.
no, I believe there was a stipulation to that up to 1815, there was a law that anyone European, African, indigenous accepted Christianity be free, and if I believe that was under British law or under the British. So there was a stipulation to it. It wasn't that you just free how. There was things you had to accept. There was things you had to embrace society.
I don't believe that was the truth under the British. Probably under somebody who was Catholic. One of the crowns that was under the Catholics, but under the British they were Anglican. I don't think they had broke away from that. But we can check it. All right, that's cool. Go ahead, Has.
Hey, some of y'all could jump in too, man. Because like I said, I'm not trying to get myself worked up. Because really and truly, I'm sitting here having the discussion, but honestly, I think this nigga is just tripping. straight like that. So
what are y'all saying about Lincoln?
I think it's possible to kill two birds with one stone, right? So you know what I mean? Like, okay, this, it will cripple them, but it's still, crippling them will put us in position to make the move, right? Abolishing the slavery, right? Will put us in position to make the strategic move also. But it can also be moral too. You know what I mean? It could also be something that they was wrestling
Corey,
within themselves too.
He's saying the main driver was the morals though. You agree with that?
So I think humans is complicated, right? So the people who are having this moral dilemma, they're not gonna be able to bring it in every aspect. Like, so they're not gonna be able to bring the morals to the table in every
argument to every right.
Yeah, so
they gotta make it economic and everything else.
Yeah, you gotta make economic arguments within that. You know what I'm saying? It's for you to appeal to certain groups of people. You know what I'm saying? So you can't bring the same argument across the board. It's just ain't gonna work like that. Even in this Discord, it wouldn't work like that. Like, to convince the whole Discord of something, like if I wanted to go on an endeavor, right? I would have to, like, Brass would have to see some type of economic benefit from it. And Sheffrin would have to see some type of community involved in it, right? Where kind of like the community benefits off of it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I would have to, my argument, when I get them in different room, get them in the room, I can't bring the same argument that I bring for Sheffrin to Brass. You know, I can't keep bringing the same argument over and over. I got to bring something else to Fetty. I got to show Fetty where the kids is going to start to advance off of it. You know what I mean? So I got to come from that kind of standpoint with Fetty. You know, I would have to show that some type of Pan-African benefit off of it. You know what I mean? So I would have to bring all these different kind of arguments, but the bottom line is I want to do it for my reason. You see what I mean?
I was incorrect. It states that under British law, enslaved Africans and Indians cannot gain freedom simply by accepting Christianity. In the 17th century, laws were passed specifically to prevent conversion from becoming a path to freedom, thereby solidifying the institution of slavery on a racial basis. And the idea that Christians could be enslaved was an older European tradition that conflicted with the practice of chattel slavery in the colonies. This led to legal challenges and uncertainty for slave owners who feared losing their property if their slaves were baptized, as chattel slavery became legally established in the British colonies.
Yeah, so it was all kinds of wild reasons why they was wrestling with it. You know what I mean? You know, these people was highly religious. You do have to remember that. Like, these people were highly religious. They didn't have, the internet where niggas is challenging Christianity. You know what I mean? Christianity, it was no challenge to it. It was like you didn't. There was nothing else to know. You know what I mean? At some points, you know what I'm saying? So,
But shit, the right wing of today is still super religious. Like when I
yeah,
listen to them
but
talk,
they evolve. So the religion evolved with the times. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, but what I'm saying is you got those like your Nick Fuentes, your Ben Shapiro's. Well, I don't know if Ben Shapiro's super religious, but I know Richard Spencer, um, the Nick Fuentes. Suffice it to say, a lot of them, they'll man, the Bible, they lead with the Bible,
Right.
right?
And 'cause
A lot of them,
it's a contradictory document. So, you know what I mean? You can use it either way. That's why that's another reason why I don't, it helps me not to believe it. But yeah, it's a contradictory document. But it just depends on what parts resonate with you. And you know what I'm saying? Again, like humans they're not going, everybody ain't gonna go for the same reason. You know what I'm saying? So it's not everybody not a Christian for the same reason.
And then like even with the quote that Haskell put up, that quote was from 1858, Haskell, right? And
which
that's
one?
when
The
he was
first one or the
the
second
first
one?
one. The first one,
Okay.
right? That was from 1858, right? When he was running for Senate in Illinois, right? But like I said, ain't nobody believe him because they had his previous writings. They knew he was playing politician because we can go to quotes from 4 years before that when he said, you know what I mean? Let me find this quote.
Right,
He
but yeah, that's
says,
what I was just about to say. If you pushing that line, then you gotta show and prove. Like,
I'm about
give
to.
me okay.
1854. I have always hated slavery. I think as much as any abolitionist. You dig what I'm saying? So right that like they knew, like,
Put the
bro,
put the
we
whole
know who we're
quote in
talking to.
put the whole quote in because here's the thing, right? Darwin has quotes where he proclaims he hates slavery too, right? He hates the inhumanity of it. He
Yes.
hates the right, but at the same time, he believed that intrinsically, those same people who he would have rather have seen a more a humane extermination or a clearing off, as he put it, a clearing off
But
of
we're
the.
just
Hold
talking
on,
about slavery.
no, no. I'm making a point though. I'm making a point. My point is, a person cannot like slavery because they're squeamish, or they believe that it is a barbaric practice that is beneath his race, right? He might feel that it's outmoded, right? It might not be coming from a moral perspective per se, insofar as feeling that these people don't need to be treated like that. So I would like to see that entire quote that you just quoted. Put it in the if you got it, put it in the chat so I can read it. Because like I said, with Darwin, he didn't like hearing people scream and suffer, but it wasn't because that he felt it was necessarily wrong, right? He just felt like it's ugly. You know, he'd prefer uh a more sanitized way of going about it. You know what I'm saying? Because like that letter that I had showed you, you said you didn't understand that he wrote to his cousin. He was psyched. He was geeked about Galton, instituting eugenics. He was like, hell yeah, I just don't think you could pull it off, but man, go for it, cuz like it's a great, I'd love to see that happen.
I agree, but the problem that you keep trying to link that to that type of thinking to Lincoln, right? When we're arguing, whether Lincoln was opposed to slavery because of morality. They tried to say it was economic and stuff like that. And I'm saying, nah, he was morally opposed to slavery, and he did everything in his power to end it. You like
Nah, I get the argument that you're making, and I'm not saying that he necessarily coming from it from the angle of Darwin. I'm saying it's possible. I'm saying that the one little sentence you wrote doesn't give me enough context for why he doesn't like slavery, why he finds it detestable. You get what I'm saying? I'd like to see the whole quote to get a full context of where he coming from.
all right, so look, let's do this.
Y'all talking about Abe Lincoln?
Yeah, they trying to make they having a conflict with another white man. They just can't they can't believe, because Haskell already said he think it's something genetically wrong with white people.
Oh man! Oh man!
So me trying to convince him that a white person can be just as moral as him, that I think that's an uphill battle. Like,
No, I think
he
no. Wait, let me
already
be
said
clear.
that they were genetically predisposed to being evil.
I think Henry Louis Gates in that quote that I sent you, I think that shit summarized it up very well. Like this entire argument, like you can't deny. I want to read that shit again. Hold on. I think I sent it in the.
Yeah, read it again. I want to hear it.
Yeah, Henry Louis Gates kept it on.
Eddie, would you? And then, how can you be comfortable with saying it could be something genetically wrong with black folks, but when Haskell says there's something genetically wrong with white folks, then you got contingent.
He's made for one. He's making a generalized statement, right? And group data. I keep saying that group data isn't saying the shit that Haskell is saying. Like, it's two different things. I'm not saying that black people are genetically whatever. I've never said that. Hold on, let me find this on. It says according to Henry Louis Gates Jr., to apply 20th century beliefs and standards to an America of 1858 and declare Abraham Lincoln a racist is a faulty formula that unfairly distorts Lincoln's true role in advancing civil and human rights. By the standards of his time, Lincoln's views on race and equality were progressive and truly changed minds, policy, and most importantly, hearts for years to come. I mean, that's a black historian saying that.
Hey, but I'm a use Chef argument because I love it so much, right? During the time of your Lincolns, you had people like your John Browns. I don't know if they're in the same time, but just generally speaking, who were staunchly and unequivocally opposed to slavery, and they put skin in the game. So the man of the time argument isn't that doesn't dispel him being a racist. It seems all Henry Louis Gates does there is explain why he's racist. You get what I'm saying?
Not really. Elaborate.
I know he knows it's racism because when he tried to get into his own house, they came and bust him upside his head and took his ass to jail.
And he couldn't believe it. He's one of those. Here's the thing, bro. Like, I realize more and more, I gotta stop thinking like I'm better than anybody, because I'm getting to realize like a lot of these people like Henry Louis Gates, they really believe what they believe. They believe that there is some sort of redemption to be had where we're all gonna kind of get together. And then when things like what happened to him at his house happened, he's in disbelief because he kept asking the police officers like, yo, you don't know who I am? Right? So, I just starting to realize that a lot of us we're just extremely naive. And
he's a historian though. Like what other historian is black? Like who do you want to hear it from? Like, because if it was a white scholar saying that, you'll say he white. But if I show a black historian that's one of the most heralded in America as a black historian, that ain't enough. So what exactly?
I don't even know. What were you saying? He started the argument is that he Lincoln had the progressive.
He's saying compared to the savages of his time, he was not, he's a relatively good person, but nothing that Fetty read there.
I'm saying the last couple of sentences he said, Haskell, to say like he definitely, made that change and, and inspired people that looked at his form and what he was doing, that like spearheaded a lot of shit in the future. I think that's what Chef's overall point is. I may be wrong, but I don't think he's caping for Abraham Lincoln to say, but he's just keeping it in a historical context and looking at the overall picture of it before, after. You know what I mean? Because we have the ability to use hindsight and look at what Lincoln did and how that further.
So then, so Fetty, how do we explain to people like John Brown then? If the idea is just like the time is just so, and I know Chef would say, well, he's not a politician, he doesn't have to play the game, blah 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 blah. But you had people at those times who weren't politicians and they were unabashed racists, right? So if it's just a man at a time argument, how do we explain those white people from that same time who weren't politicians and who you didn't have to question, their feelings about racism? How do we, if we saying Abe Lincoln is like the standard for progressivism, then what would John Brown be? You get what I'm saying?
Would just be the so if Abe Lincoln is a progressive in his time, John Brown would be just the standard guy. The status quo, basically. I
guess, yeah, he could have had a more refined framework of what, like you said, they both had a progressive framework. I guess, you could say John Brown's was more ideal to your liking. You know what I mean?
No, what I'm saying is with John Brown, there's no doubt about it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't have to craft the argument like how Henry Louis Gates is doing and, do mental gymnastics and it's just no question about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I mean, I don't want to deter the convo too much, but again, I got like me being from Virginia, knowing a lot of like subtle history of what we was taught. Like I got a lot of letters from like people who you would deem, a little racist, but they wishy-washy. They write letters, to like Thomas Jefferson's and certain people saying like, yo, we wildin', we need to, adhere to, everybody's created equal and they need a fair opportunity at life and we need to leave them alone. Like it's a lot of people. So that's what make it tricky. And I don't know who said it the other day. Humans are complex, bro. Like it's a lot of contradiction in there. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not knocking you for bringing up those contradictions, but like I try to look at groups who was going against the grain, and not only the problems they was facing, trying to do that, but just from their own circle of people who look like them, and how much of a, I guess, uphill battle that was. So I see what all y'all saying, but you can't deny that.
I mean,
morally had some reason to say what, like you can't say it didn't have zero.
I mean, considering that we were property at a point in time, and now that we're not, there has been evolution of some sort, right? So I mean, the bar is in hell, as the ladies would say. the bar is in hell.
It's a low bar. Unfortunately, at that time, yeah, the bar pretty much was in hell.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. If you're gonna bring up shit like the Underground Railroad, you gotta acknowledge there was some white people that helped along that way when those people went to the north.
No doubt about it.
That's all I'm saying.
No doubt. No doubt about it.
And none did more than Lincoln. So if you can acknowledge that there was a moral component for people in the Underground Railroad, then I mean, if soon as Lincoln took the office of presidency, right, the South didn't vote for him. Soon as he won, they said, yo, we out of this bitch, yo. Y'all done motherfucking elected a rabid abolitionist. We gotta start our own country, because this nigga is trying to end slavery. And he said, no. Y'all can have y'all slaves. You feel me? Like, I ain't trying to break up the Union, but they already knew what it was. He couldn't get them with that Haskell. You feel me? And then everything he did after that shows that he was against slavery. Remember, even when people attacked the Emancipation Proclamation, in this argument, if this goes on, I guarantee you the Emancipation Proclamation gets attacked. But I already got a counter for it. You feel me? Already got a counter for that. You know what I mean? Matter of fact, I'm gonna give y'all all my cards. If he wasn't trying to end slavery, then the motherfucking Emancipation Proclamation was bullshit, like y'all say. And then why was he for pushing for the 13th Amendment? If the Emancipation Proclamation was just some bullshit, then he was a staunch advocate for the 13th Amendment. He argued for it, you know what I mean? Like constantly. Before he died, like, yo, we gotta do this, man. We gotta do the fucking 13th Amendment. We gotta abolish slavery altogether. I did everything I can do, and he said, Congress, this is your job. And he laid out why, yo, y'all gotta pass this. We gotta end slavery, not just for the South, but for the whole country.
Did you put the quote in the chat? The one you had quoted from?
Hold on, let me get it. I'm gonna give the source, and you just go read whatever you need to out of that whole.
Just put the source in the chat.
Yeah, so I mean, what else? You trying to get whether he was racist or not? Don't give a shit. You feel me? Everybody had. I'm a little racist, probably. You feel me?
Right. I think you can push for something and still be pro whatever. Like, obviously, you know, Lincoln was probably pro-white, I guess. But within him being pro-white, he could still acknowledge certain wild shit that was taking place. I mean, two things can be. And I don't expect any white person during that time not to be pro-white.
Yeah, but like then that would kill
nucleus. At some nucleus of who they are, they're gonna be proud of their ancestry, their forefathers. Like that's why I try to take myself out my shoes sometimes, especially with history, and look at why certain people even had the original mindset they had to begin with. All that shit into play.
Yeah, Lincoln's statements. I mean, we could. It's a good pondering question. It's just there's way more statements before, during, and after the Civil War that he made himself to show you where he stood on slavery.
Yes, I'll take it back.
Would be just our opinions, but people, his own letters. I mean, remember he was a big time writer. His own writings and his own statements prove it. But it's good to have it's good for conversation. No question. Because this is where I would go to the Cuban aspect. He still pushed. So when you talk about him being against slavery, you're trying to rationalize that he's against slavery in the South, or just slavery, period. Then I would add the Cuban piece. Right, but then I don't agree. But the piece that Cuban brought it up yesterday. People wasn't really listening, but his push for colonization in other areas. He couldn't have been against slavery, period, because he was a big time colonizer, a big time push for colonization in other areas, other countries. So it's not either he was just selective to Americans. If you're saying if that's your argument, you'd have to go against a lot of his own writings. You could look them up yourself, but his own writings do it. But I can't say we don't need to talk about it, because this has been something that people have been talking about forever.
No, I'm emphatic about what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know.
I'm saying if you have something that can show that he wasn't against slavery, you dig what I'm saying? More than y'all got
statement, Chef, and you know it. Like, I mean, bro, I don't gotta read his statements to you. You know what he wrote personally about slavery. You went to history. This isn't like a.
So obviously you got something that I don't know. then you can go ahead and
You
kill
don't
me
know
right
nothing
now.
about his own rights. You
When,
don't
when
know
he
about
was
what he
for,
wants.
when he wasn't against slavery, I need to see that because this could be over.
No, it will never be over with you, bro. I know how you
I'm
play.
telling you how you could kill me.
No.
And now you dancing.
I don't
Yo,
know. I don't trust you.
Hey,
No.
Haskell, do you see this?
I don't trust you, bro. You're a sick nigga.
Nah,
Okay, listen. You
I
can say I'm
see it like
dancing.
how Brad
You can
see it.
say whatever. You're a sick nigga.
You're gonna
You
find a
go find
rational.
that shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna find a rationalization. I've been
Yeah,
said
I'm not.
that.
No,
Like,
then
that's how I feel
show me
too.
how much of a liar I am right now.
Nah, you see,
And
you
if
doing
y'all
that.
show me this,
This is why I
you know
needed
what I
Haskell.
mean?
Thank you,
Y'all,
Haskell. Thank you, Haskell. This shit don't really float. This shit don't float. When you flunk certain shit, when you flunk shit with Chef, the shit go down and out to the
Hello, how you doing? Let me have
Yeah, you leave
give me a
floaters
second.
with these other people. I ain't doing it. I'm not. Listen, you know it. I know it, Chef. You can read motherfucking W.E.B. Du Bois. I know you ain't lost on his private speakings
I'm
on.
saying I could be wrong about Lincoln.
Yeah, but you're still gonna be emphatic.
No,
and
listen,
wrong.
if y'all saying that you have letters and shit where he was for slavery, then you just killed me. Like, I don't have nothing else after that.
Okay.
Hey, where's the colonization thing you talking about, Brass? Is that in Africa that he was pushing for colonization?
Nah, it was in Central America and the Caribbean. So even in this was during his support of the 13th Amendment. He was still fucking around with colonization experiments. So, and that's not something unless you really study Lincoln,
Thank you.
You got to look because colonization, that's why when we talk about how sick the United States is, we're sick now, but there were things that were going on then when, with less oversight, where it was a little spooky where you're like, why, like where you don't even, why are you doing that? You know what I mean? But that's the part and that's why you'll hear Cuban all the time talking about what about colonialization? He says that all the time and people don't really pay attention to him for whatever reason, but he was still sending free Black Americans abroad. So, so just look up American Colonization Society. But Cuban said it yesterday. I'm not going to take credit for this. I looked into this a few days ago when he said look into them, and I didn't even know about that at all. So, it was a little crazy.
Our word. But we don't look at it like when you say slavery, you think of all kind of brutal shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you think of colonization, that word, you just think of, oh, they just came in and took over some people's shit.
Right.
Not realizing, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That shit just as brutal.
Yeah,
so if he was pushing for colonization while he was pushing the 13th Amendment and all that should kill the argument.
Yeah, Lincoln, but he's gonna argue, Chef's gonna argue regardless, but there was a project he did in Panama called the Chiriqui project, and he had struck a deal with a company to settle freed people in modern day Colombia from that Panama. So he was sending agents to recruit free Black families from DC and Maryland to basically go there, but it was so corrupt, and in Central America wasn't really with it. They were kind of being forced to do it, but he tried to do it in Haiti too. He was trying to removed like maybe 400 or 500 free people he was trying to move them to an island off Haiti to establish
I forgot about that. Wasn't he pushing to send people to wasn't he the first one like really pushing? Yeah, he was like one of the first people pushing the idea to solve the Negro problem. Let's get these niggas over here. Ship them. Yeah, I forgot about that part too.
It was to establish a cotton colony.
So what that would,
it was a cotton colony.
Yeah. It's over with. Yeah, it's over.
And the reason I had heard about it before, because even Frederick Douglass at the time was saying that, he was. If you look at his writings, he had kind of cooled on he had kind of cooled off on Abraham Lincoln as this great emancipator. He at first he said that he exact opposite of what Chef was saying, that he lacked a moral hatred of slavery. That's what this is Frederick Douglass at the time, saying that he lacked a moral hatred of slavery. But then after the 13th Amendment, he did give Lincoln credit, but even he then in his own writing stated that that it was basically the necessities of the nation. So it wasn't like some kind of moral thing. This was then. So and then you go to Nicholas and Hay, his secretaries, and even they admitted themselves that he was just preserving the Union, and that slavery was just incompatible with the goal. It's just you can't, and there's no way really we're going to be able to save the Union. These are the people close to him. So like sometimes when we have these conversations, we can have all the thoughts we want, but use the man's own words, use the people that were around him, use important people at the time, and those people at the time say different, but they don't say he was terrible, and that's where you get into the Chef argument where I can't argue with him. Sometimes we have the conversations of what's normal now wasn't normal then. So you look at something as hater. That's why when you put up the Skip Gates thing, or somebody put up something about Skip Gates, he has the right to his opinion, but he's a historian. So I don't care about white, black historians. I'm looking for accuracy. So,
Please in driver's seat.
I don't want to fuck up the conversation. He might be racist by our standards, but I would say he was more conservative and progressive.
But you ain't fuck it up. I think you ended it, but something tells me Chef gonna come like the Undertaker, dog. He gonna fight.
He's gonna fight. He's gonna fight. That's the thing that he I think that he I don't think Lincoln ever embraced any kind of equality, but I don't know. But if y'all could find something, but in 1858, he said himself, "I am not, nor ever have been, in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the white and black races. I, as much as any other man, am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race."
Yeah, I put that in the chat in the Discord.
That's in the Lincoln Douglas debates.
Chef said he was just making it juicy for him. You know how them niggas be snitching, and I was just making it juicy for him.
He told black leaders in 4 years after that, it's better for us to be separated. That's when he was doing his colonization efforts. And then also, if you read his book, and I don't know if anybody read it, Chef probably did, he used the word nigga in private and in political circles. Like, he wasn't some kind of like different motherfucker.
I think how Chef will counter that though, Brass, is not so much denying his racism, but the fact that he was against slavery. He could still kind of argue that still represents an evolution.
Okay.
I think that's gonna go with it.
But when was the evolution? Because right before the Emancipation Proclamation, he said, if I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it.
Counter for that, Brass. Again, he said he was just making it juicy for them political niggas.
Okay, then this isn't an argument then. We're listening to Chef's words over Abraham Lincoln's own words. Okay.
I'm still waiting for them letters about him being for slavery. I'm not listening to all of that nonsense.
I didn't say he wrote letters that he was for slavery. I said wrote letters that he wasn't against it. And I just read them, but if you just saying I just read his own words, and if you just won't accept them, then that's just Chef being Chef. I'm not gonna listen to your words over Abraham Lincoln, even if you can convince other people to do it.
Yeah, Brass, he thinks that was a speech, but I was telling him that was a letter. It's a
No,
private
those were letters. That was a letter to Horace Greeley. Yeah, that was a letter to Horace Greeley. Literally, it's about as white supremacist as that's as much as any. If I could save the Union, this is August 22nd, 1862. If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would also do that. His priority was the Union. It wasn't emancipation. If he could have done it without, these are his words. If he could have done it without freeing slaves, the slaves wasn't the concern. The concern was the Union. So he didn't give a fuck if slaves were free or not. That's a letter. That's not that. And when we talk about the Emancipation Proclamation, he freed the slaves in the Confederate States, not the borders. He didn't give a fuck. It was a war measure. So, but if y'all, like I said, y'all can listen to Chef, that's fine. It's good for conversation, but I'm not going to listen to anybody in 2025 over him. Those are his words and his actions with colonization. Why, if he was against slavery, then why are you trying to send free Black people to Haiti to pick cotton? Shit don't even make sense. So y'all have at it though. It'll be an interesting conversation, but I'm gonna listen to Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln's own words.
Yeah, I think you killed it, Brass. I think we could move on to something else now. Like, it's over with. I don't know if Chef gonna bend the knee or not, but I think it's over.
You know that
with
nigga ain't gonna bend the knee. It ain't in him to do it.
I'm not listening. We already done
Yeah,
went over that. He supposed to been showing me that Lincoln was
Keep
for
saying it.
slavery.
For slavery. No,
I'm not.
He
I
has
already
to.
done countered that argument.
It
That
has to.
he's repeating something.
You're not
that
listening to
I don't
anything
even
I'm
agree
saying.
with that. That was
You're
a
not
political
listening to anything.
statement.
You're not listening to anything.
So
if you
the
ain't
fact
gonna
that-
listen, it's not even a conversation.
Chef, the fact that that was a letter, personal correspondence, and not a speech, does that change anything for you? Because
No.
you argued it was just a political ploy. He had to do that, right? But now that you know that it's not a speech, it was not a public proclamation. Does that change the anything for you?
No.
No, I got to hear it from him because he made a good argument, right? If this was like in front of the Senate or something, and he kind of doing a juggling act, I could see where he coming from with it. But the fact that it's a private letter, that kind of, it takes the strength out of that argument. So I want to hear from Chef himself, now that he knows that was a private correspondence between him and a colleague, if that affects, his position any at all. Where you at, Chef?
He's on mute. I think you couldn't hear today, Chef?
Of course. No,
Yeah.
No, he laying concrete.
Yeah.
This line.
This nigga's crazy.
Yeah,
What's
man, I don't know nobody else gonna jump in. Like, it's like 10 people on you.
I'm about to say, what's the conversation? I just hopped in here.
That Lincoln was the when Corey said there was white people sprinkling freedom all across the world, Lincoln was the original Santa Claus, essentially.
See, that be them niggas living in that double consciousness. Like, we know the bullshit version they teach us, then we know the truth. So whatever Haskell say, I'm rolling with Haskell, nigga. Fuck it. That's my boy.
Yeah.
DQ, was it mainly moral or was it mainly political? While
100% political. Political.
I think Chef's saying it's like 80% morals, 20% political, according to Chef. Chef crazy as hell, dog.
Well, Chef does that purposely. I told y'all that nigga is willfully obtuse.
I don't know. He's doing a good job because he sounds sincere. He sounds like he really, like he sincerely believed that. So he got me.
But that's the beauty of it. You fell for his fucking trap. That nigga Chef know that shit about money. That's why Chef is in there giving a Jewish taper fade right now for money.
Right now.
It's about money. Ain't no moral. Chef didn't get up and be like, you know what, it's Saturday. Let me cut some niggas hair. Hell no.
Hey, so this is Frederick Douglass. Mr. Lincoln was not an abolitionist.
Ooh.
He did not act from a moral conviction of the iniquity of slavery. This is Frederick Douglass, but we're gonna listen to Chef.
Brash, you can't do that though. You just said a person's opinion. You can't do that.
I don't know. I'll take Frederick Douglass's opinion.
See, that's what I'm saying. You can't do
Frederick
that, bro.
Douglass
You got to
was-
be fair, bro. Because
No,
if
no,
somebody,
I'm never fair. I just treat people the same. I don't believe in fair. But
Okay,
I
then.
would say,
Okay, it's
I would say,
semantics. Okay, all right.
no. I'm just
You see
saying
what I'm
when we're
saying?
talking about Skip Gates and Frederick Douglass, at least
He's a
Frederick
modern
Douglass.
historian that has the
Right.
you don't think he has more context than?
No, he couldn't have more context because Frederick
I'm
Douglass
saying
was there.
as a modern day historian. Okay.
No, I'm saying Frederick Douglass was there. No one could possibly have more context. There's no one now studying that
As far as the
time would have more
progression of
context
it,
for
bro.
Frederick Douglass.
Like I'm saying, go back to the quote. I'm saying he's able because Frederick Douglass isn't alive now to see how a lot of those precursors evolved into what we see now, bro. That's what I'm saying.
No, I'm not rejecting what you're saying. I don't want you to think I'm rejecting it. I'm just saying, as far as context and stature, I would listen to Frederick Douglass in the moment, at the time, more than I would listen
You're
to.
kind of contradicting what you're saying because you just said you don't care about a person's opinion, but you just use somebody's opinion and try to use that
I
as
don't
weight.
think that's his opinion. I think that's a statement.
You think that's semantic?
I don't.
That is not opinion. Frederick Douglass was a primary source. It was his time. He was living during that time. So therefore, we can use Frederick Douglass' argument and Frederick Douglass' work because we use it in every other. We use primary sources in every other semblance when we discuss history. Right? We use primary sources, and Frederick Douglass is a primary of his time. He had interaction with men who had interaction with Lincoln. So if Frederick Douglass make a comment, it has to be taken more seriously than Skip Gates, because Skip Gates is not primary. He's basically making his opinion based on other sources that he have already was of that time. There are two different times. Frederick Douglass can make that statement. You can make a statement about Charlie Kirk now based on the YouTube videos that we see. Would that be an opinion that is not valid? Would you witness a man word from his mouth? No. So you have to Frederick Douglass words will have a lot of weight to them. Do you have to believe it? No. But you cannot say it don't have any weight. And you can't compare it to other people who wasn't there. Opinion to say their opinion is equally as weighted as Frederick Douglass' opinion.
Yeah. Hey, Stu Pease, it says Douglass was there. He says you're right to trust Frederick Douglass's words over a modern interpreter like Skip Gates Jr. Douglass was there. He spoke to Lincoln.
Yo,
He debated.
I'm saying you defeat, bro. That you're not even addressing my point.
I don't even know if
it up. I'm saying
okay,
bro. All right.
So,
all right, so
therefore,
he spoke to Lincoln. He debated him in print. Because I wanted to get away from the fact that
your original premise was that you don't want to use anybody's opinion.
Is it eating you up that I'm talking? Is it bothering you that I'm talking? Just let me finish my sentence.
I think you just be playing the semantics game a lot.
I don't know, but just say whatever you want.
Go ahead, bro. Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
All right. So I thought that it would be just because he was there, Stu Pease, because then that would make more sense, right? If he's just in the area writing about Lincoln, then okay. No. But if he was, it says he spoke to Lincoln, debated him in print and in person, wrote about him extensively. His testimony is a primary source. It says
that's what I
early in the war. Yeah,
But yeah,
because he did change.
again, he wasn't able to track and
Damn.
progress. I thought you was done, bro. I
No,
thought
I'm
we was
not
having a
done. One
dialogue.
second.
Yeah, another
No, one
nigga was
second.
talking. Like, what the
You know,
fuck?
one second, because I said Stu P's name. Give me a second. So it says, because I'm trying to also expound on Chef's point. Chef is correct that Douglas had changed on Lincoln over time. It says he started off thinking that he was cautious, compromising, and unwilling to strike slavery directly. So when he said he's not an abolitionist and he did not act from a moral, that he viewed Douglas, he lacked a moral commitment. During emancipation, though, like Chef said, he recognized that Lincoln used emancipation more as a military tactic. The proclamation itself was not a declaration of equality, it was a war measure. So that he freed enslaved people in areas he didn't control, the Confederacy, while leaving slavery untouched in border states that were loyal to the Union still. And then after Lincoln's death, Douglas softened. That measured by the sentiment of his country, Abraham Lincoln was swift, radical, and determined. Measured by the sentiment of his time, he was slow, cautious, and reluctant. So he respected that he grew into the role, but he still admitted that he was no early moral abolitionist. So I mean, that's why I'm saying at least he can recognize that in his death, he realized that there may have been some form of a moral component, but his actions didn't. His actions
Frederick
didn't.
Frederick Douglass just did the Mark Antony speech, Friends, Romans, Countrymen. That's all he did when he spoke about Lincoln after his death. It was a Mark Antony speech from Julius Caesar. You don't speak badly about the dead. So he was just trying to tread a middle ground. Lincoln was an asshole. And anybody who sees Lincoln as anything else as a black person,
man,
of course he was. Of course he was.
He was definitely a white supremacist.
Yeah. Of course he was.
If Lincoln is against slavery but is a politician, then so he would be against slavery, but he would be a moderate politician.
Did Lincoln see the blacks as equal? In any Lincoln's paper, did Lincoln ever see a black person as equal? In any of his papers, any of his writings?
It ain't about equality. It's about that he was against slavery as an institution. He thought it was morally wrong.
Oh, you're back on the moral things.
Yeah, we're back on moral.
He did not.
Oh,
This
no.
moral
That's not
law.
no, he didn't do it for morality.
He emancipated slaves. He's the great emancipator, and then he pushed for the 13th Amendment.
Chef, don't say that word. Chef, you just been triggering now. You just been triggering now. Chef,
you don't understand. You're very clear. Those statements you make show truly that you don't understand.
So what was the 13th Amendment for then?
No, it wasn't about morality. It wasn't
about it's the man. Oh my God. Yes.
Wait, hey, Chef, hold on. Are you familiar with the Corwin Amendment? The Corwin, you ever heard of it?
The who?
The Corwin, Corwin Amendment.
No.
You ever heard of it? You've heard of it, you probably don't know. Remember the what's the name where they were talking about? I had to look it up to get the actual name, but the amendment, there was a guy during that time after Lincoln's address in the 1860s, whatever, and he was talking about making slavery permanent. That they wanted to add to that they wanted to propose to the Constitution that this is before the Civil War, that slavery would be permanent forever, essentially, in the states that already had it. Even Lincoln said, I wanted to go back and see if he objected to it. He said, holding such a provision to now be implied constitutional law, I have no objection to it being made express and irrevocable. There was a time that if he would accept slavery being permanent forever if it saved the Union. But you gonna say that's bullshit though, right? So tell me how that's bullshit. This is a person who didn't mind slavery being
he could have
permanent.
went back if he felt that way, then he could have said, okay, the union, y'all come back into the union and y'all can have y'all slavery up until this point. He didn't. He ended slavery for the whole. He advocated ending slavery for the whole country.
You just glanced over what I just said to you.
Because I'm not gonna get caught up in y'all minutia. Anyway, direct quote,
slavery being permanent is minutia.
Direct quote. If slavery is not wrong, nothing else is wrong. God. I cannot remember when I did not think and feel like that. That's Lincoln. What that letter was to who again that y'all said? Who was that letter to?
If you're not going to accept nobody else's sources, we're not having a conversation. This ain't a conversation, Chef.
I'm asking
this ain't a conversation. You're not accepting anybody's sources, Chef. You're not accepting anything from anybody else.
Niggas off, Brad.
You're right, Freddie. I'm done.
I let y'all get it all out. I thought I did. If y'all not finished.
But you're not addressing what I just said.
Bro, because you're trying to derail my point.
I'm not trying to derail your point.
I thought I had already, you jumped off, right? I thought I had already addressed most of the shit that you came back in and reiterate. That's why I haven't said nothing.
But nobody has brought up the fact that nobody in here brought up the fact that he was
I'm not even talking about that. I'm not, listen, I can only deal with what I'm working. I can only deal with what I can deal with.
You're right. You're right about that. Go ahead.
You came back in and went back through what I had already thought I had counted. You dig what I'm saying? You came back and reiterated it, and Hansel was like, "Oh yeah, you killed it." Like what? We already done went through that before he got on. That'd be the crazy part about it. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, what was the letter? Give me a second, little buddy. What was y'all saying? It was from a letter to who? That first statement that Haskell had posted. You said it was a letter to somebody. Haskell.
That wasn't a letter. That was a link. That was a debate between Lincoln and Stephen Douglas. That's where they get Lincoln Douglas debate from. That letter, like that debate that they had.
Oh, that quote. So what did y'all say? It was a quote from a direct quote from a letter, and it wasn't a political statement.
That was the Horace Greeley.
Having the superior position assigned to whites thing. That second quote, that was a letter.
No, okay. It was well, not just. I don't know about that one. I was talking about a letter to Horace Greeley. He was an editor at the New York Tribune. That was right before the Emancipation Proclamation. Right before the Emancipation Proclamation, he wrote a letter that said, "I would save the Union. I would save it the shortest way under the Constitution." So that's what he. If I could, that's where he said, if I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it.
Mm-hmm. So y'all don't believe that Lincoln was also a politician, and do you know that a lot of the North didn't agree with them fighting to end slavery? Y'all know that was a part of the whole thing, right?
He wasn't.
So y'all don't think Lincoln was masking a lot of the stuff that he was doing? I'm reading direct quotes. He said, "If slavery is not wrong, nothing else is wrong." I cannot remember when I did not think or feel like that. That's crazy. He said he always felt as though slavery was wrong. That was in 1864. He said, in giving freedom to the slave, he says, we assure freedom to the free, honorable alike in what we give and what we preserve. That was in 1862. You dig what I'm saying? I'm going to keep going. He says, I have always hated slavery. I think as much as any abolitionist. Like he's constantly going. How can y'all say that he wasn't against slavery when he got direct close against slavery?
He was not a
politician. He was a politician, and then he did everything to end the institution of slavery. So
let him finish. Just let him finish. All right, If
So
that same letter that was to Albert Hodges in 1864, and that's the collected works, right? So it says he always thought slavery was wrong, but in the same breath, because you just read a quote from the letter, but you didn't read the whole thing. He didn't see it as his job as president to act on the belief. His duty was to preserve the Constitution and the Union, which means his morality did not override his public policy. And the reason why it's not a bombshell is because before and after that, he supported an amendment that would have made slavery permanent. Now, I know we wouldn't act like that's minutia, but he supported, I'm going to say it slowly, he supported an amendment to make anywhere where slavery already was permanent and irrevocable as an amendment to the Constitution. He wrote to Greeley before that letter that if he could save the Union without freeing any slaves, he would. He then, in 1863, was trying to send fuck slavery right now, what we talking about. He had a project, a colonization project, to send freed Black people to Haiti to pick cotton. There were multiple colonization projects where he was trying to take freed African Americans at the time, because he was trying to get them out of the United States. And then in everything, and almost everything you could find, his goal was to preserve the Union. It had nothing to do with emancipation. So I would be very conflicted. I don't understand the point. But if we gotta accept only the quotes and it's really just your view. Because now, like I said, I'm not accepting Chef's view on this over Frederick Douglass at the time. Not doing it. Y'all can have at it. I'm not doing that. This is a flawed conversation.
I dropped the book. Oh, my bad. Do you think?
Go ahead, DQ.
No, I was about to say I dropped the book source in the chat. Y'all can see Lerone Bennett Jr. is on. Called Forced into Glory. Abraham Lincoln's White Dream. It clearly breaks down all this shit that Chef is really overblown right now. It explains that in detail. I can drop some more into it, but I'm going ahead and build, Mel.
Oh, that's exact. Thank you, DQ, because that's the direction I was going. I was going to ask, can I throw a source out to explore this deeper and to go into the minutia and go into the specificity of Lincoln as a politician, because Chef is absolutely correct. He was a politician, but in the sense of a politician, he knew how to play both sides outside of his personal views. And Lerone Bennett does a detailed job of pulling sources, primary sources of conversations he's had, letters he's wrote, dialogues he's had, even with his own butler, who also was a testimonial to a lot of Lincoln's views. And Bennett argues in his work that he did not believe in social or political equality between the Black and white races. Bennett breaks down that he opposed Black suffrage. Let me clear this up. Lincoln opposed Black suffrage. He did not believe Black folks should have the right to vote. He opposed Black folks sitting on jury service. He's even on documented record saying he opposed intermarriages, and other civic possibility of Black folks being incorporated in it. He is on record. This is according to Bennett in some of the first 2 or 3 chapters. Bennett breaks down numerous different spaces where Lincoln used the N-word comfortably, where he had numerous darky jokes that he would use to kind of break the ice in certain rooms. He completely held the views that Blacks were inferior to white folks. And according to based off of what Brass was breaking down, Bennett argues in chapter 5, 6, and 7, because I'm just going off of memory, I could be wrong, that Lincoln supported it, gradual emancipation. If he was able to break down slavery, it was a gradual emancipation that's going to be built on compensated emancipation, meaning like the slave masters was going to be compensated as they emancipated their slaves. He had numerous conversations around colonization projects. He was sending people to Haiti. He was looking at the Liberian piece. He was checking out Venezuela. He was trying to get blacks outside of the United States because he felt like the black race and the white race could not coexist in the same political infrastructure. And so a lot of the curtailing of the framing of how we understand Lincoln came after his death. That was constructed by abolitionists and congressional leaders later on as they reflected on him and created a myth around who he was. So he became the great emancipator after his death, not because of what he was doing and what he held belief. And he was not a crusader for the abolition of slavery. So when we politically consider and look at Lincoln in his time and what he did and what he said and what his views were and the people who spoke around him, including Frederick Douglass, then we have to be honest with the history and say that he was a white guy of his time who held the whiteness, the views of white supremacy, and he did the right thing for the wrong reasons. And I land.
Y'all should have never let me figure out this motherfucking soundboard. Boy. Y'all should have. Hey, so remember the Peoria speech in that book where he was talking about how he said, like, Lincoln was slick. This is where the politician shit comes in. He said slavery was wrong. He did. He said those words. Slavery is wrong. But he wasn't talking about the slavery that was already existing. He was talking about it moving in the Kansas-Nebraska Act. He was talking about it moving into those territories because it would threaten white free labor. So he wasn't. So he reassured them. That's why when you read his speeches, he's so much a politician. They don't call this nigga the great emancipator. That's why I laughed when he said that. Because only motherfuckers that don't know Lincoln call him the great emancipator.
Right.
He was the great compromiser.
Yep.
That was he was able to play with the North cause in the South. So at the end of a very same speech where he started off saying slavery was wrong, he made sure that by the end of that speech, because he was talking to voters too. This is in Peoria, 1854. He was saying, what did he said? He said, I won't interfere with slavery where it already exists. So he can start a speech saying slavery was wrong. That's why, like, Chef will always be able to find shit like that. But the reason why history tells a different story is because they were able to listen to slavery ain't wrong, send these freed niggas to Haiti. Slavery ain't wrong, but I don't think niggas should marry with white people. Slavery is wrong as long as it don't go to Kansas and Nebraska. But wherever it is right now, that shit is cool. We good with that. I ain't got no issue with it. So that's why it's like some of these arguments, when we have them, is cool to have, but some of it is, there is no gray area. This ain't something where we could kind of live in a gray area because it's been broken down too much over time. And you can look at his actions, these are private letters. This is General Butler. I know you talking about his personal butler, but even conversations he had with General Butler at the time, Benjamin Butler. Benjamin Butler declared runaway slaves who reached Union lines were a contraband of war and would not be returned. This was a radical move because he was treating enslaved people as free. What Lincoln did was he didn't want to piss off them border states in Kentucky, so he didn't even back that shit. So even if a motherfucker he wasn't even he didn't even support runaway slaves at the time. So the most correct thing that Chef said was that he was a politician.
That's right.
But maybe other people outside of Chef, if y'all want to talk about it, but like y'all tell me where y'all think that he was what's the name? But when you tell me, give me your opinion, but give me some written shit, some sourced up shit, something outside of just what he said this. We're giving you actions, votes, and policy. Y'all just telling me what y'all think. What do you like? Who actually believes that Lincoln was morally against, like his actions were motivated by freeing the slave?
I believe that Lincoln was morally opposed to slavery and Reagan was posts cocaine. Just say no.
Even funny than a motherfucker.
Let's do business with Bush, Oliver North, the Iranians, Manuel Noriega. Just say no. You know, this guy wasn't against. He could give two fucks.
Where Eddie left, Chef left. So where's the Lincoln? I want the people that I'd like to talk to them, not just Chef. Chef could morally feel his point is right, but where's the other people? Because all I keep hearing is he said slavery was wrong. None of his actions prove none of them statements. None of it. Even Skip Gates. I'm not listening to Skip Gates over Frederick Douglass. I'm just not doing it. Frederick Douglass knew the man, talked to the man, debated the man. I'm not listening to that. Maybe Skip Gates from Egypt, but not this.
I'm only giving my opinion off of the limited history that I know and what you guys have just read. So that's all I'm going on, right? And I think politician is where you end it. I don't see anything morally like he just sounds like a fucking good politician. You know, the great compromise, I've heard that before when it comes to Lincoln. Yeah, that's what he was. Like you know, if you were to look at him not as a politician, he'd be all over the place like bird shit. But the fact that he's a politician, like he says what he needs to say to at the time. That's what it sounds like to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion. Just my opinion. I don't believe this nigga was going out and freeing nobody for no moral nothing. Nah, I don't. Because your actions speak louder than words. You can say all the fuck you want, whatever the fuck you want, but if you're keeping it in border states and you know you push for it to be permanent, sending niggas the fucking out. Yeah, get the fuck out of here. I wish Chef was still on here. Like I don't know.
No, he'll have it. I mean, right. When you look at the man, you kind of got to look at what he do when you talk about this. With him, he had freed black servants in the White House. Like this is he was pushing colonization, but like what was the guy's name? What was his fucking name? He was his valet, but he wasn't. They call him his butler, but it was valet at the time. I forgot his name, but in that book, Forced into Glory, that was one of the other points that LeBron Bennett pushed. That was the only book I've read Lincoln's biography. I've read that book, but in that book, he talks about how the staff that he worked in and around was free. But he would say that they could never be equal. The fucking staff, the closest people to him, Mary Todd, his wife, the closest people to them was freed black people. So it was, I don't know. Y'all can, I mean, y'all arguing. I'd love to hear y'all argument for this, but at least make it an argument where you ain't just telling me how you feel.
I mean, just because you let Hope drive Miss Daisy, that don't, I mean, what that
No, but what I'm saying, the hypocrisy is the people closest to you in the White House. I don't like to quote movies, but I liked the movie with Daniel Day-Lewis where he played Lincoln because it showed how he dealt with the black people that worked in the White House. But publicly, he wasn't showing that same support. So that shows he was a lot of things to, you know what I'm saying? Like he was a lot of things to a lot of people. So it was weird. It was just weird. But I don't get that. People don't really still use the great emancipator part the Chef was talking about. They don't really still do that. That's the compromise. He was a compromiser. He was one of the greatest politicians we've ever seen.
William Johnson.
And it seems and as Mujashi said, it seems
was
to
it
be
Slade or Johnson?
Posthumously.
Johnson.
Okay, Johnson.
Yeah, this seems to be a posthumous sort of situation. It seems like the people that were his contemporaries did not have this this fairy dust great white hope sort of opinion of him. So like, I'm
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with them.
Any person that would say out of their mouth, if I could end the Civil War without freeing one slave, I would do it.
Right.
You know his goal, even if you thought he believed in freeing the slaves, you can tell his goal is just to fucking end the war.
Right. And preserve the Union. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
That's it. He was trying to preserve the Union. Just we can keep going, but I don't know. This ain't like this. This ain't the sprinkling freedom all over the world. This ain't that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would love to hear someone try it. So if anybody else agrees with Chef, speak or forever hold your peace. Pause.
Yeah, I like
Corey
that.
was in here too.
Chef gracefully bowed out, man.
No, he doing Jewish tapers. That white man told him, listen, if them niggers don't believe in Abraham Lincoln, ain't nothing you can do. But you gonna give me my good white Anglo-Saxon taper and shut your black ass up. Get to work.
And make sure you don't fuck up my cowlick, nigga.
Yeah, you fuck up this cowlick, you gonna have problems that you can't deal with. Bigger than a nigga named Brass. Them niggers will never learn. A goddamn Mujasi. I got a Mujasi for you. And then flip him a quarter. Yeah, you know what's funny? You know what's funny? You literally had to, you know Chef longer than me, and you had to come here today and say, "Have you always been like this?" That was the funniest part of this whole shit today. Nigga said, "Yeah, not for nothing." Yeah. Side point. Have you always carried these feelings on the inside of yourself? Like, have you always been struggling with this? It's crazy. It's crazy, bro. I'm happy to see where it goes. But the funny thing is, I'm still trying. Where's the support? If it's a valid argument, okay, cool. Where's the support? Who else feels like this? Nobody.
Well, where's Concrete Corey at? Concrete Corey with the shit.
You kept cutting Fetty off, Brass.
I did. Oh my bad. I mute my mic. I apologize. He's right though. I will cut a motherfucker off and then complain about somebody cutting me off. I'm a hypocrite in that. I ain't gonna lie to you. I will definitely. Yeah.
What I appreciate about what Chef is doing is he's allowing us to see an abstract angle of an argument that we need to always flesh out and have conversations about. We need Chef to continue to explore this direction that he's going in, because it's creating not only good conversation, but it's seeing how far can the Black psychology go to justify an angle that just doesn't have any foundation. We need that. We need Chef to continue doing what he's doing. It's important. It's really important.
What's crazy, Mujasi, is I ain't know that we was actually in the alien self-disorder.
Mm-hmm.
But we watching it. Like we're actually participating in the alien self-disorder right now.
Yeah, I wanna whether Naeem Akbar is quote unquote credible, but I want to read the rest of the book. I don't give a fuck. Like I gotta read the rest of the book, yo. I like this shit is interesting, you know.
I mean, it's kind of tough because I was saying in the Discord yesterday, like, I feel like we all to some degree got an inner coon, like, because at the end of the day,
you did say that.
Y'all will say some shit that is just
he did say that though. I saw that.
Yeah, because if you think about it, right? If you think about it, like, we're under siege, so to speak, right? And not only that, the language that we learned, the names that we have, the people who
you stopped at people who, bro. I think before he come back or while he's figuring out his connection, Mujasi, I think there's another reason why these conversations are actually good, but it's a little bit more nuanced to me. To me, it's the struggle. I don't call it coon because I don't like the word. I think it's a struggle of we built this country, but look how this country treats us. It's tough as an African American sometimes to be proud like that of America like that. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's the you know, it's the I guess it's the not the two-ness, I wouldn't say, but it's just like it's like damn, like yeah, the Emancipation Proclamation was great, but why, you know, why only the states you don't, you know, like why only them? If it's really to like solve the slavery problem, just emancipate everyone.
Right.
Not just the states you don't control, like emancipate everybody. Right. When you saying slavery is wrong, if you start your speech, slavery is wrong, but then you end your speech with, but I'm gonna preserve it wherever it already exists.
Right.
It's like, damn, it's like shit. It's once again, it's the same analogy I had for another day. I'm not gonna change. You kick me in the stomach. And then when you stop kicking me in the stomach, I say, thank you for stop hitting me in the stomach, but you're kicking me in my knee now.
Hey, I got a question for you, Mujasi.
Yes, sir.
So the moral part of it, right? Even when you hear him say slavery is wrong and this, that, and the other, do you think he's being 100% genuine, or do you think it's a response to the rebellions that were happening? Some of the political atmosphere at the time, you know, there were people who were against the shit. You know, do you think it was genuine? Because again, his actions didn't quite speak to it. So even when I hear anything that they present to me as moral, I'm even questioning it, if that makes sense, dude. So do you think that he genuinely in any way didn't believe in slavery? Like, or do you think it was just kind of all bullshit?
You know, it's hard for me to answer that question because the little bit that I've read about Lincoln, you know, he's very similar to how Thomas Jefferson wrestled with slavery and wrestled with the system and the institution and how much he participated. Like white folks in political and electorate positions at that time did have some conflictions. Some of them, not all of them.
Okay.
Some of them were very staunch. Like, look, this is how the world should be. This is how our economy and politics should be. But there was some of them in their darkest hours journaled some conflictions that they were having as they, you know, pondered on the existentiality of themselves and the world and America and slavery. And some of them did have, you know, according to some like, you know, very private sources, they had some conflictions. Now, did it show up in actions of morality? Not necessarily, because as we see in Lincoln, he was very much of a statesman. He did what he had to do politically to try to advance his career. And so the Emancipation Proclamation was a war tactic. It had nothing to do with his moral convictions. It wasn't something he ethically crusaded. His support to get behind the 13th Amendment was a political consideration because of what other Republicans at that time were doing. So he was trying to stay on the bandwagon and secure his opportunity to be reelected. And so it had nothing to do with his moral convictions. He wasn't morally positioned to see Black folks at the time, Negroes, as equal. He didn't think they had a role in the economy at the time. He was starting to side with the Whig and the Free Soil Party to say like, yo, the labor development of these new companies and these new factories should go to white laborers. And he really didn't have a strong, prominent plan of what the Negro should be outside of the emancipation. And so he had numerous conversations with Frederick Douglass. He had debates with other Black leaders at the time. And he was going back and forth with other radical Republicans at that time on what is the case for the Negro? What should we do with the Negro? And so he himself was not moved and propelled by some moral sense. We don't see that evident in his writings and some of his speeches. We see reflections, and that's the piece that my brother Chef is trying to elevate, that he had reflections, but it wasn't convictions, and they're different. You know, it wasn't something that it moved anything that he did in politics. And so everything he did was politically motivated. It was for his own self. It was, for his own, disposition and what he wanted to do in his career. So to answer your question, the little bit that I read from about Lincoln from Lerone Bennett's work, he just did not have any type of conviction that made him see that slavery was immorally wrong. And I'm going to make my political stance here to change the material conditions of Black folks at that time.
Yeah, they glossed over a lot of his statements. I mean, the man literally said that if both races are going to live together, there has to be a superior and inferior.
That's right.
And that I am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race. He was damn near a supremacist. He was talking about deporting free. Forget the ones that were enslaved. We talk about Donald Trump and deportation of illegal immigrants and shit like that. Sure, this motherfucker in 1854 would be, and even if it was to free all the slaves, send their ass to Liberia. It would be better than integrating them into the United States. He was talking about deporting not just the slaves, free Black Americans to colonies outside the United States. And this is before the Civil War and during the Civil War. And some of it was secretive. He was trying to send slaves on an expedition to Panama, what was Central America, but will be Panama today, to scout land for a fucking Black colony. He secured federal funding to relocate these people. So we're not talking about a person that like in 1862, it says he took the step of inviting a group of Black leaders to the White House and urged them to lead the example by relocating.
That's right.
He said Black and white people cannot coexist on equal terms. You and we are different races, and that it's a great disadvantage. He asserted we suffer on each side, and by living together, if this is admitted, it affords a reason at least why we should be separated. He concluded it is better for us both, therefore, to be separated. His vision of his future, it didn't include us as equal citizens here. He wanted us out of the fucking United States.
You have to give him white supremacy at the least.
The preliminary Emancipation Proclamation of 1862 echoed his intent to colonize freed people. He said the efforts would be made to colonize persons of African descent. This is not days before he died. He said, in order for, he told General Benjamin Butler that peace between North and South might require removing Black people. He said, I can't believe that the South and North can live in peace unless we can get rid of the Negroes. I believe it would be better to export them all to some fertile country. Deportation was his solution. Now, listen, when we say this, Lincoln's support for colonization provoked fury from abolitionists and Black activists who saw it as a cruel scheme denying Black people a place in their own homeland. Frederick Douglass said, Douglass accused the president of assuming the language and arguments of an itinerant colonization lecturer and betraying racial bias. That his proposal of colonization actually revealed his pride of race and blood, his contempt for Negroes, and his hypocrisy. This is Frederick Douglass at the time. So people talk about the Emancipation Proclamation like it was the Constitution, but it wasn't. It was very limited. It was very, very limited. It did not free all enslaved people. Only those held in Confederate states that were still in rebellion. And when we keep talking about it wasn't a war measure, he says it as a fit and necessary war measure for suppressing the rebellion.
That's right.
It declared that on January 1st, 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of the state, the people whereof shall be in rebellion against the United States, shall be thenceforward and forward and forever free. But it only applied to enslaved people in areas outside of Lincoln's immediate control. Kentucky, Delaware, Maryland, and Missouri, which were all still in the Union, were exempt, as were any rebel areas already conquered. So it was a war measure.
Yeah, there was parts of Virginia.
His own Secretary of State said, "We show our sympathy with slavery by emancipating slaves where we cannot reach them and holding them in bondage where we can set them free."
Yeah.
His own Secretary of State said that. We can't change history in 2025 and just act like, oh no, he was doing it because it was the Negroes. The man would say nigga in private and public.
Yeah, and
it wasn't.
that's the other thing.
I don't know.
But
Chef ain't here to argue his point, so
he's not. And here's what I'm gonna throw a small little consideration in defense of my brother Chef. And we got West Virginia because of those 48 counties that were in Virginia that was still a part of the Union. Tennessee was also exempt from the Emancipation Proclamation, and there was parts of down there where Logic was in Louisiana that wasn't a part of that Emancipation Proclamation because it was still part of the Union piece. But where this is where I will create a buffer piece in support of Chef. We can't come after Chef entirely because the image that we understand with Lincoln became prevalent by the turn of the century, where even Black folks believed that Abraham Lincoln was this great emancipator. It was the overwhelming myth that was created and fortified. The reason why we have Negro History Week is because Carter G. Woodson made an estimated guess that the second week in February was the birth of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. And so there was a lot of Black folks in the early 1900s. Not only was there a bunch of kids running around with the name Abraham because of Abraham Lincoln, but there was a bunch of even early thinkers and early racemen, if I can use that term, who believed in the constructive idea that Chef is arguing that there was a moral constitution to Abraham Lincoln's swipe of a pen. And so this mythology around him is not new. And it's not something that's coming out of Chef as if it's something that he's doing deliberately. It's kind of like the myth that it kind of existed for generations up until recently. And so you had some scholars in the late 60s who began to question the position that Lincoln was on. And what I've been developing 15 years, I'm going to say it took Lerone Bennett like 15 years to come up with that piece, but it was a 15-year project. And he was getting he was getting attacked by different, Skip Gates and a few different people who was like, nah, it wasn't that bad, because you're shattering the image of a great white savior to Black folks who long held this idea that Abraham Lincoln was this great man. And so now when you write this book that's damn near 500 pages long, talking about he was not what you think he was, and he's something over here entirely different, people have to wrestle with that for a couple of generations. And some people altogether just say, fucking, I ain't believing that. Abraham Lincoln was a good old man, and when you got both of those
of the world,
both of those exist. And so I'm not ever going to blame my brother Chef for really trying to push and contend that point around Abraham Lincoln in the Civil War, because that's not his. He's echoing a sentiment and a held sacred belief around Abraham Lincoln that Black folks been holding on to since the early 1900s.
But the key word you used was myth.
Yeah.
A lot of those things that were said, even with Carter G. Woodson and all of them, a lot of those things that were said was, I got a group of CPs right there. That was in his death.
Mm-hmm.
And Carter G. Woodson, I would say, used them more as a symbol. If you read Miseducation of the Negro, he talked about that, symbols and heroes and stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
And then also it placated a lot on, Lerone Bennett was talking about how it was when he died. So it was almost like he gave his life for slavery. You see that fucking stupid ass shit with the coins. He's the only one with a copper coin facing the other way because he turned the back. I mean, all this mythical ass stuff, but people, but like, it's just the reality is, I think he was more a saint after his death because during his life, Douglas was chewing his ass up.
Oh, for real.
Frederick Douglass was chewing him up.
Yes.
And when we're and the thing is, we use these definitions very loose. Someone in here said that Abraham Lincoln was an abolitionist. An abolitionist is for the complete and erratic. And I'm not saying this is my definition, so I'm gonna use it loose. Or I'm gonna be a hypocrite right now. An abolitionist is for the eradication of slavery, not for eradication of slavery, just not the border states. You're talking about people during that time. You know, we could look at the abolitionists of that time. The abolitionists of that time weren't in the frame of how can I say it? They weren't in the frame of like trying to play around. These were people that was trying to get that shit out of here, get it going. This is William Garrison, Douglas, Tubman. People forget about Harriet Tubman a lot in these conversations.
Yeah.
But they wanted the immediate and total eradication of slavery and then also equal rights for Black people. So if you want to say that he was moderate anti-slave, Lincoln was moderate or whatever, that's fine. But you can't say that he was a politician, bro. He was trying to preserve the Union and make sure that if we did move our ass into Kansas and Nebraska, that slavery, the freed white people was going to get them jobs, not slavery.
That's right.
It wasn't about slavery. It wasn't about. But ain't nobody arguing the counterpoint. So somebody got a different point because this is at this point we're just kicking the shit out of Chef unnecessarily.
What's Fetty?
I attempted to defend my brother a little bit. I attempted to defend him.
You did a good job.
Yeah, but it's clear with the mythology.
Right.
Like let's be real. Like we're talking about mythology at this point. We're not talking about something practical or real.
That's right. That's right.
That's about as good as it's gonna get though, Brass. I mean, because obviously this is some bullshit that was made up after he was dead. You know, it wasn't like that when he from his contemporaries. You know, it's some shit that and I totally get what Josh is saying. Why? I mean, like growing up. Lincoln was a hero. You know what I'm saying? Like you know, the man could do no wrong. So, and I don't think Chef is being like. Listen, we can joke about the Chef X and this that, but yeah, we know Chef ain't really like that. You know what I mean?
I ain't never called that nigga Chef X. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that y'all was going there. I wouldn't say Chef X. I would just say Chef. Chef has a chef. These conversations are important because, similar to what Mujasi is saying, it does make you have that question of, this question, because we're talking about people. I like the conversation. This conversation about a person is weird because, people are funny. So it's like, you could say he was moral and a politician and then somehow try to prove your point. Fine. But when you talk about the other conversation, to me was a little bit better because at least we're talking about some structures, some systems, and some institutions that are in place and trying to prove that the overall ideology of those structures, systems, and institutions were somehow the greatest liberators. You fuck up a conversation, like even yesterday, I left the conversation mainly yesterday because y'all started talking about white people. And I don't like to get into that kind of conversation, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, because you're talking about people. People are flawed. People are flawed. Some people are great. Some of the greatest people are weird. I mean, Thomas Jefferson, all men are created equal. Once again, in his backyard, while he wrote that, he had 600 slaves.
That's right.
And then you get right. So I don't want to talk, but I don't want to. You get into the people conversation, and it gets a little weird. But then you get into the minutia of, and this is something I don't think we're tackling, Mujasi, that I think is unfair. I don't think it's fair that we're not really realizing, and this is why I won't castigate Abraham Lincoln also. But we're looking at this with 2025 eyes.
That's
Boots
true.
on the ground. There was something we was talking about the other day when we were saying we got to be careful with anachronistic statements now, because what was the narrative? When the majority thinks something is normal, no matter how you know what I'm saying? When the majority thinks something is normal, no matter how sick it is, it's the normality of it is driven by the people at the time, the majority of people at the time. You know what I mean?
Yes,
what do you remember that conversation we was having? So it's like when I call him, even when we call him a racist, you got to be kind of careful. Or when you call him, he hated. It's not like him doing that now. You know what I'm saying? It's not the same.
Right.
Even though we can say it's the same, the overarching, we're talking about, they lived in a time where there was slavery.
Yep.
It was definitely not, slavery was definitely not looked at the way we look at it now in 2025. So you got to add that kind of sentiment. I think they were having that conversation in regards to Darwin. When they were talking about how racist was he, or how this was he, or how can we trust evolution and this, that, and the other. I think Haskell has that argument a lot of how can we trust a lot of this shit, because for all intents and purposes, he wasn't racist.
Yeah.
But then again, based on the time, the authoritarian time, authoritarian aspect or egalitarian, one of them two, of the time, how racist was it?
Right. Concrete Corey was arguing that about Darwin and saying that of his time, and he's right. Of what we read earlier this week in Akbar piece, Akbar would say that Abraham Lincoln and Darwin reflected the democratic sanity of that time. Like they were part of the social norms and the behavior normality that would have been sane for that time. And so, that democratic sanity of white supremacy and racism, Abraham Lincoln reflected that. If we was to transfer him in today's terms, he would I don't know what it would be. I'm just throwing this out there. I could be wrong. He would probably be your Bill Clinton. He will probably reflect that type of kind of liberal politician where, he stands somewhat in the middle, but very politically motivated.
Yeah, like he beat Bill Clinton, but with Bill Clinton, you can never remove the '94 crime bill.
Exactly.
So it's like as liberal and as progressive as he is, that nigga sent motherfuckers to prison forever.
Right. That's right. So you see those conflictions, and Abraham.
Right, because we're talking about people. See how crazy it gets when you start talking about people.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the people. Let's talk about the systems. Now, when we talk about blacks in history, a lot of times we end up having to talk about people because we weren't in control of those systems. We weren't, it's not something that we control. Go ahead.
I mean, you want to talk about those times, like I don't know, man, wouldn't he be considered more than progressive? He'd be, well, no, I guess not if there were other abolitionists who were saying he wasn't really about that life. But I'm just thinking in those times, like, it's pretty bad. You know what I'm saying? So like, I would think some of his ideas might be, wouldn't they be considered? Like, you got to give him credit for that, right? That shit would have almost been radical, right?
What's up with y'all, man?
Hey, can y'all hear me? Yo. Y'all can hear me?
Yeah,
we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know what was happening with my phone, but I had wanted to say to Brass and Mujasi, the fact that he still was okay with slavery still going on in the states that were in control of the Union, that's the silver bullet right there. Like, if we could distill this whole thing down, that's the silver bullet. Like, if Chef come back on here and still attempt to fight that particular point, then he not having an objective discussion. But yeah, y'all killed it right there.
In that
speech,
that
and the colonialism.
In the Peoria speech, 1854. What's up, Logic? I don't know if he's trying to talk. You want me to fall back?
No. I was just trying to get caught up in what y'all was talking about, but I'm listening. Go ahead.
Okay, in the Peoria speech, 1854. Look that up, Haskell. He starts off the speech saying slavery's wrong. But then he ends the fucking speech saying, but he's talking about slavery is wrong, but in the context of the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Because he finishes the speech by saying, wherever there are slaves, essentially right now, that's fine. So then you ain't talking about slavery, bro. You doing politics. You trying to get elected right now. You don't give a damn. Like the Kansas-Nebraska Act, he was concerned about slavery spreading west. And if slavery spread west, it wasn't even that he was concerned about the states. He was just making sure that if it was free labor, that free labor was going to go to white people.
White folks, yeah.
So and then the gun to the silver bullet is we're only talking about what he did to enslaved black folks. He was trying to send freed black people outside of the United States to work out.
Go pick cotton.
Yeah,
that's it.
If you're
That's
willing,
it.
you call.
Wow.
Yeah, you call the leaders to the White House, black leaders to the White House, to tell them, listen, the only way I could do this is if they do it willingly, because these people are freed. So you niggas, y'all go first. Be the examples that they need to see. Could you imagine being proud to get an invitation to go to the White House and then have the president say, I'm doing this colonization shit in Panama, in Haiti. And in order for your people to see you as their leader to understand what I'm trying to do, you niggas willingly go first. Because it ain't no way this is going to work inside the United States. This black-white thing ain't going to work. But you want me to also flip the script and believe that this nigga think that slavery was, no, black people shouldn't be slaves. When he supported a fucking amendment to make it permanent. Y'all talk about the Emancipation Proclamation. What about the amendment from Corwin, who said this shit would be permanent, irrevocable amendment to the Constitution that slavery, wherever it is right now, is permanent. As long as if that'll end the Union, fine. The nigga was trying to do anything he could do to preserve the Union. It's just after the Emancipation Proclamation happened, he died. He died a martyr. And it seemed like he died as a martyr for slavery, but it wasn't that. His timing of him dying just made it seem like he died to free the slaves. But y'all, listen, I'm still waiting on the argument. I heard it. I'm assuming this must only be how Chef feels. Because if nobody else feels like that, we could talk about fucking football or something. Yeah, the homie Steph. He said, no. He says you can't discuss. It says you can't discuss the system without discussing the people who created it. No, correct. When I say discussing people, the original conversation we was having, the homie, was Western civilization is the greatest liberators or champions, greatest champions in human rights in history. But as we began to talk about Western civilization, it really was. Chef was saying that we were really having a white people conversation, but my flip back to Chef would be, I think Chef was actually having a white person conversation. I was trying to talk about the institutions, and I think it was white people are the greatest champions and human liberators, because when you do the Western civilization argument, it's flawed because most of us were brought to Western civilization. We wouldn't be here without it. Without the oppression and the barbary of the barbarianism. So that's why. So when we talk about the system, he said the system didn't just create itself out of happenstance. No, that's true, but I just don't want to talk about people in this particular conversation, because we're talking about what's happening to groups of people. And usually, to me, when you talk about large swaths of people or races of people, it'd be better to focus on the systems behind it, the institutions behind it. Or if not, we just gonna start talking about, well, this white man thought this, and this white man thought that, and this white man thought that. Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Right. That ain't even a good conversation to me, in my opinion. But y'all have at it, bro. I didn't ask for this conversation. I just participated. But everybody, I guess whoever support Lincoln ain't hearing them. That's why I was asking y'all earlier, Askell, because I didn't think it would be that long of a conversation. I was asking y'all, is this even some shit to go live over? Because I don't think it. Once you start pulling out the points, I said I'd probably kill the conversation when I brought up the points. So, do y'all want to talk about something else, or we can shut the live off and go on about our day? It's Saturday, watching football anyway.
I think I came in and contribute all that I wanted to contribute, but I definitely want to encourage folks to get into the next article coming up for our study group this Tuesday. If I remember correct, we're going to be talking about social Darwinism and scientific racism. And so this is a conversation that we had like a month and a half ago where we was talking about Charles Darwin, was talking about scientific racism, and a lot of discourse came out about that, and it was real good, really good back and forth. So I found this article that's exploring and going deep into that. So but just encouraging brothers and sisters, if you can, take some time to read through it, because I think it's going to be a real good conversation. Some good platforms on Tuesday.
We're about to read the Beagle. About to read the Beagle, niggas.
Oh, God.
Shit. I'm such a fucking nerd. I love this shit, man.
I wish Haskell could actually be a part of some of these conversations. Haskell, to me, has the most nuanced argument when it comes to Darwin. It's the most nuanced one. It's not a, if you're there, maybe you can present it, but it's the most nuanced one. It's not the overly supportive. It's not the overly against. It's just like, even when we started talking about this today, he immediately said, well, then what about Darwin? Because I think Darwin's racism has always been a question, not just in conscious community circles, but just a question in general. What we're accepting this now. The work eventually proved out, so you could remove his racism. But I think a lot of times people will always have a hard time accepting his thoughts, because it was like, man, this guy was a fucking racist. Mm-hmm. But then you go back to whatever it was of that time per se. So you gotta add that little piece in there.
Right.
But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for Tuesday. I really don't like talking about Darwin, but social Darwinism I don't want to talk about. But I don't like.
I was just going to say, because I think this article, well, from what I remember reading, it doesn't go into Darwin himself. It goes into the construction of social Darwinism and how it's became a foundational theory to support a lot of the scientific racism of the early 20th century, and how that perpetuated impact on communities and stuff like that. So it goes into the bigger conversation that we've been having in terms of theoretical ideas informing social systems and programs and stuff like that. It kind of leans into that discussion.
Man, you making it difficult for us to just tear down Negroes. What are you doing? Are you an agent? You trying to get us to stop there? The community is mad at you, bro. Now we gotta accept. Where my tearing down Negro brother Logic at? Me and Logic was the king tearing down the Negroes. Now we gotta learn about them and say, hey, take a second. We can't tear them down. We can't learn about them and tear them down at the same time. Justin.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, we can. We can create slavery to demolish it.
I don't know. Man. I kind of like doing it with no sources. Pause. Just literally just tear them down and listen to the people just complain.
You know what? My brother, I really, if Fetty is still on, I really want my little brother Fetty to join us and make sure he can be a part of this conversation on Tuesday, because I'll be interested and excited to hear his views on that article, because it goes into Charles Murray and and some of the work and how there's a relationship between that science around that IQ and its connection and legacy to that piece. So I'll be interested to see with my little brother how he interprets it and potentially reframes it, agree with it, disagree with it. So I think it's going to be a good discourse. So if Fetty's not on, hopefully he listens to this. I really hope that my brother could be there.
What this got to do with Charles Murray now? Before I join this class on Tuesday,
hey, Raz, as you gotta relax, man. Come on,
hold
man.
on now. I
Stall
feel
him
like
out,
you
bro.
just said
Stall him
this
out.
has something to do with Charles Murray. Now I don't want to wake up on Tuesday and get discouraged.
Nigga, wake up and put your Charles Murray bell curve bottom jeans on and quit bullshit and get your ass in here.
Hold on, Mujasi. You might have played your hand.
No, it's one of those pieces where in the article, curve idea and reframe that as a legacy or scientific racism revisited. So I think they got like a couple of paragraphs where they go into Herstein's and Murray's work and look at that as been an extension of scientific racism. And so one of the things that my little brother, Fetty, talked about is that he interprets it not in, and he hopefully he corrects me if I'm wrong. He doesn't interpret, he does his research and reading into the literature behind Murray and Herstein. They don't talk about it from it's not a racist kind of piece. And so it kind of explores that. The article is not entirely about that, but it revisits that in its conclusion. So that's why I think it's a good piece for us to have some conversation about. It's not about the bell curve and their work, but it concludes with kind of making an argument that work is a revisited example of what scientific racism looked like in today's terms.
Well, Johnson, do you think that we are free from scientific racism right now?
No, I don't think so. No. Not
Anybody think we are free from it? Is everybody busy? I know it's Saturday.
Look, I'm not. I heard what you said, Mujasi. I just rather not speak on it right now.
Okay. Yeah. Much respect, my brother.
I don't think we're free from it. I don't think we're free from it. You think we are?
No, I don't.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't think we're free.
I'll go Rose and Ups and Recognition. I'm actually reading it right now.
Okay. It's a good read. It's really good. it's gonna challenge some things, but I think yeah.
Hold on, what did this motherfucker just say? Yeah, this is gonna be interesting on Tuesday.
Yep. So yeah, definitely. I'm hoping everybody could participate.
The survival of the fittest. I glanced a little bit further to see Darwinist principles were intended to buttress the case that biological evolution could be equally applicable to human societies. But Spencer reasoned further that human societies, like biological species, operate according to the principles of natural selection, are governed by competition and fitness, and evolve from an undifferentiated, homogeneous, and primitive state to one of differentiation, heterogeneity, and progress. Those too weak or ill-equipped to compete are those who are unwilling or unable to do so, ought not to be given an artificial boost to keep them on nature's battlefield. Yeah, this article done pissed me off.
Read it with some temperance, brother. Read through
but
it.
You already done said I can't read it with a blind eye because that's why I started now, because you already started talking about Charles Murray.
Yeah.
And now laissez-faire government and individualism, these games. Y'all go ahead and talk. I'll mute my mic. I'm reading right now.
Yeah, Just read. So, and I'm encouraging everybody, if you can, synthesize it, read through it, because I think the argument that they're making, what Dennis is making in this, is interesting, coming from a kind of a sociological and anthropological interpretation of it. But he grounds some pieces, and some I don't agree with a few things that he states in here and he positions himself in. But I think it creates for some of the conversations that we were having about a month and a half ago, and really exploring it on the literary level. You know, what's the literature saying? You know, this is one of many different arguments and different scholars who wrote on this. But to look at this and what came out of the early 1990s in terms of their thought around scientific racism and how it informed imperialism, slavery, and stuff like that. So it's a good read. It's a good exploration. It does take some time to breathe through it. But I think you're gonna find some things that it explodes, and there's gonna be some things that you're gonna like, yeah.
Yeah, listen to this. So Spencer, he equated with racist thinking by noting Spencer had a belief that racial conflict was the key to social progress because it entailed a continuous overrunning of the less powerful or less adapted by the more powerful and more adapted, a driving of inferior varieties into undesirable habitats, and occasionally an extermination of inferior varieties. He said his fear was that governments would intervene to keep the less powerful afloat with artificial devices such as welfare, thereby fucking with nature's natural selection process. So this person must have agreed that, okay, it says it in the next damn statement, that he believes slavery, it was supposed to happen. Like, it's needed. Ain't this a motherfucker? And what you got us reading, Jesse?
That's what I'm saying. So we're looking at how they're exploring how scientific racism and leaders and thought people inform certain ideas of social events. And so the article, what Dennis is doing is his argument is that you can't talk about the bell curve, and you can't talk about some of the bases of those researchers and some of those scholars that formulated this tradition of thinking without looking at it from the racism, the scientific way of how racism permeated these research think tanks. And so that's the summation of his argument.
I've heard this argument. Yeah. I mean, but that's why I say it amazes me how, like, and again, I respect what you're saying. It amazes me how, like, a person will talk about something indirectly, but don't want to read the actual book. Like that kind of like amazes me. Like,
you talking about the bell curve, Fetty?
Yeah. But like I even brought up how like even Murray, it's like it's crazy because like that's why I say you got to be mindful of who the author is and what political agendas they have to try to talk on the book, because they will use that book to act as if he came out and had a conclusion that was synonymous with the racist shit. He made disclaimers all through that book, bro, about racism and all of that shit. So I just be tripping out, like. But I can't get mad off a person's argument. But it's like, this is the Ezra Klein and Sam Harris. Like Ezra Klein is going to tell you, you got to bring up scientific racism and how that da. But you got another side who say, yes, we're aware of the scientific racism that took place, but there's been a refinement and there's certain data that's been replicated, and you got to deal with it. And it's not rooted in the same thought process dealing with eugenics and all that. I talked about all of this, how geneticists now tell you to have an anti-eugenic approach, but you also can't have genome blindness or ignore the fact that people on the individual basis vary. So it's
Did
like,
you say that on the show?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's why.
Yeah.
And
you did say that on the show. I remember you saying that. That's all. That's the only reason I asked. I wasn't saying it like you didn't. I was just saying, I remember you saying something along those lines on this show.
And Fetty, that's why I'm excited for you to engage in this. If you have some time on Tuesday or before then to engage on this and talk about this with us in the study group, because I've heard you examine and kind of position yourself on a certain interpretation of this type of research that I think this author may challenge you on. And so I'd just be excited to hear your interpretation. You know, like I've heard you push up against what Routledge Dennis is arguing. So, you know, just excited to have you engage on it.
Yeah, I'll definitely tap in. And my only thing is that you don't need for my argument, I don't need the bell curve to prove my point as to what I think should be addressed. I could just use 2025 or 2024 data dealing with African American children and SAT scores. So it's like I don't have to use the bell curve to prove my point, because you're gonna have to argue current shit that's coming out now, talking about inner city communities and how, you know, certain children can't, you know, do shit at a certain level, whether it's English, math, and how this shit is going to be problematic because you don't learn these foundations early. It's going to fuck you up as an adult. So I don't need the bell curve to prove my point. But that's just like historically, you have to bring that book up because it's controversial. But take the causation out of it. Most people argue over, oh, you said it's genetic, but you still have to deal with the fact that African Americans on the average level, we have a lower IQ score than other groups on the average. Like, you can't get around that. That's what it is. You can argue over the causation, like whether it's fully environmental, but you still have to deal with that, you know, issue. And if you want to really change the gaps, the method at which you want to change it, cool. But is a person racist for merely just presenting replicated data? Take the causation out of it. Are you saying if any white person that's in a certain position, if they were to present something that isn't, I guess, feel good from an African American standpoint, is that person automatically racist?
No.
Well, yeah, that's all I'll be saying. Like,
I just saw some of this data. What's your data say on them SAT scores? If this is true, this is.
I can send you a video right now from the University of California talking about the growing correlation between SAT scores and race.
No, I'm talking about the actual data.
Okay,
no,
I
got that we average 907. No, I'm saying the numbers.
I can show you a video. It's a time lapse from like 1980 something to now, and it shows, you know, like on a time lapse, it shows like, you know, the scores of African Americans compared to other groups. It has Asian, Indian, Black, white, shit like that, and it shows you a graph, like a time lapse, showing how these groups fare with one another based off math scores, English score, and you see we damn near we was like second to last or third to last certain decades or whatever, but it's a certain thing that you see like based off, you know, the past 30, 40 years. You know what I mean? So I'll send all that to you.
It says that ours is 907 and that the national average is 1,024. How the hell are we 120 points behind the fucking national average? Is this PSAT or SAT?
I mean, it depends on, but most data uses like SAT, ACT scores. If you talk about younger like middle school, high school, I think they use something. I forgot the exact standardized test they use, but it's all correlated. Like IQ tests, standardized tests, and even what young children take as far as like, you know, tests to measure certain shit. It's all measuring something called the G factor, and you can like extract that, and you're able to, you know, see where a student may lack in, whether it's the shit y'all talking about, like verbal. Do they need to get better at the verbal part of the test, or the pattern recognition, where you see a picture and you know how like it'll say ABC, and the fourth one it'll show like a certain pattern, and you got to be able to, you know, show what the next one is. So it's measuring a lot of shit that's been shown to be, you know, very critical when you're an adult. So it's like, I'll send it to you, but again,
send it to me.
Shit bad, bro.
Yeah, that's not good. That is not good. I know they were saying there was a little bit of a change up a few years back when the test went more digital. But 120 from the national average, that's a little crazy.
Yeah, so we talking about black people, and we trying to forecast a lot of this shit as far as, you know, if this shit gonna get better. Now we got to look at the babies and what they doing. We don't really matter. We matter, but we gotta forecast on what the fuck they doing, what they, you know what I mean, the challenges they gonna have, because they gonna be the ones who represent us when we all gone.
Why do you think, and not to cause a problem, but in your opinion, why do you think when we had these conversations, outside of the Blackology part, why do you think that the racism part comes into it immediately? Like, why do you think this is like more just a difficulty of us to accept, or when I say us, I mean me and you. I'm not excluding. Yeah, I wasn't excluding you. I'm just saying us.
Y'all think nobody wants to hear this type of stuff, like, you know what I mean? And that's why I be tripping, because it's like, y'all think I was originally happy when I was reading this shit? What's the brother Joey that said I gotta go lay down? After reading that shit, I had to go lay down for like a week, bro. I ain't gonna lie. I'm like, yo, this shit, wow. But like when I was inquiring and I'm looking at reading the book and looking at other external sources to not talk about the causation, but the problems of, gaps of scores, I had to tell myself, I'm like, bro, I can't lie to myself when I'm seeing certain shit that's replicated. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yo, at this point, I got to either say this shit bullshit, and I know in the back of my mind, I'm saying it based off emotion, or I got to deal with this shit like how I would, as a coach or whatever. If I was to see we finishing last in a certain metric in that area of space, you going to address it like, yo, we got to get this shit right. So it's like, I especially when I watched Arthur Jensen had that Harvard debate in like 1969, and he said, if we don't address this problem and fix it, future generations of African Americans will say this is the biggest blunder when it comes to our progression. So I told myself, I'd be damned if a white man has the heart to talk about this shit and none of us don't. That the optics of that don't look good. So hey, I said, fuck it, I'll be the sacrificial lamb and at least bring it up and not have any emotion to it. Like I'm saying, look, these are the results. These are the IQ averages, SAT scores, or whatever. Shit ain't looking good. You can argue over the causation, that's cool. But the reason why I bring up genetics, because a lot of new research dealing with neuroscience is trying to address old problems that's been rooted in racism. And a lot of these neuroscientists are approaching it from, hey, this is data that we can use to address it. And because and even if we address it on a political level or policy level, it doesn't have to be rooted in necessarily racism, because they bring the analogy of you got eyeglasses and we've created ways for people who don't see as good to use that thing to, operate better in society. So whenever a person hears like, oh, the causation may be because of this, socioeconomic or genetic or whatever, they're just trying to find the solution. Because again, when I'm reading all of these sources and all of the money that's been allocated, billions, my nigga, billions of dollars have been used to address the same shit we've been talking about: socioeconomic factors, the Head Start program, nutrition, and nothing has really worked to the extent at which they wanted it to work. Bill Gates pulled back. He had a little joint a couple years ago. Some shit of money being allocated to address certain gaps. They're data people. Like they looking at the shit ain't working. We need to pull back. So it's like, yeah, the socioeconomic thing. I agree with that. Lead in the black people communities. Lead dealing with external shit like violence. All of that shit plays a part. But I just think we could have this convo in good faith without talking about, hey, that's racist. You think black people dumb and all that shit. It's like, come on.
Okay. Is Logic or Haskell, y'all available?
Yeah, no? I was gonna say, ask the question again.
Why do you think when we have this IQ conversation, or just in public, but in here, that rather than trying to really deal with the actual data, does it immediately become a somebody got to be racist conversation? You know what I'm saying? Like, where do you land on that? Do you think we should be more focused on the data, or should we be mainly just never really removed from the socioeconomics and stuff like that? Like, why do you think it always becomes a racist conversation? Because we tend to be able to have a lot of good conversations in here, even testy conversations in here. But that particular one, it never works. We always don't start. It always ends up somebody yelling, cussing, something like that.
I can't explain that part. The only question, I don't really partake in that, but I think people don't want to look at the data, honestly. And so it's easy to turn to the racism and put the blame and onus on that instead of actually looking at quantifiable information.
So where are you with? Are you familiar with the IQ conversation?
It's regarding the IQ test or just
Like
a different
like the
conversation?
bell curve and Charles Murray.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the bell curve.
So where do you stand with the bell curve? Do you think it's something we should look at the data, or do you think it's more of a racist connotation of a conversation?
I definitely think it's a more racist connotation with the bell curve.
But you just said we should look at the data. Doesn't the bell curve offer mainly data, or no?
No. The bell curve, in my opinion, is trying to encourage a particular outlook on that IQ test.
And you think even in 2025, even if that's what it was doing during that time, you think in 2025 it's still doing that, or you think it's something that we should, like when I say the African American scores on the SATs are 120 points behind the national average, do you put that towards data, or do you mainly say that there's got to be some other reason for that?
So when we look at the data regarding that, we have to look at population, demographics. We have to look at how they compare to other students in those areas, and then make sure that they're getting the same type of quality education across the board. And so that's my thing, is like, regardless of the racial factor, are the tests accurate regardless of, that aspect? Like, can you put any child within, this particular educational system, and as long as the educational system, is of quality, can they succeed? And there are cases, depending on which cities you're in and the financial, situation within those cities, there are cases where you may have cities that pursue more so pushing academic agenda higher than maybe sports, and things like that. So those particular schools have, they equip their students, they have more available, learning abilities and tactics for students who may have a hard time or who may have certain learning disabilities. Those same things may not always be present across the board.
So then where do you agree with the data?
I agree with the current.
Yeah. Go ahead, I'm listening.
Yeah, I agree with the current IQ test.
The current IQ test. And it's different from the test then?
6 months, yes.
How?
The standards for education were different.
Just explain. Just assume like I don't know. I may know the answer, but just understand we're live. I'm trying to gauge it out. I'm not gonna assume everybody that's gonna watch this or know it, you know what I'm saying, are gonna know. So what would make the IQ test then not detrimental but unfair, but not make it unfair now? Because that would be kind of like the assumption that scientific racism is over, right?
No, I wouldn't say it's over. But I would say, so let's look at curriculum and content. So with education, we've come from a place where emphasis was more on memorization and literacy and mathematics. It was a more focus on those things. Science and social studies in education were taught, but they didn't have any depth. They were very surface level. Same with global awareness in your area, multicultural studies. Those things are very, very limited in education. Today, those standards are a little bit different. They're a little bit more broader. They're more skill focused. There's more emphasis on problem solving, literacy, critical thinking, integration of STEM across the board, and they don't ignore the cultural awareness aspect. There's SEL, social emotional learning. It's also part of current day education. So the education itself is completely different across the board.
Okay.
Yeah, the testing. I mean, I can go further in depth with the testing. Technology has helped. Compared to what we used to be in currently, technology is beneficial. Lots of learning management tools, smart boards and tablets and computers and all that type of stuff all help with pushing where education is forward. They give you more tools, more access.
Well, remember what I said. Well, when new findings come out that the things we talk about only account for 10% of the full cause of a student's success, what do we do with that?
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? Because like even in the bell curve book, like take the most of the contention again comes from a paragraph, bro, in one chapter. When I read that, like when I read most of what he was saying, like regarding the problem of how we're in a complex society, like as every day as time goes on, we're going to be in a more complex society to where the jobs that are, lucrative or whatever are going to demand a certain cognitive just baseline, right? And if there's 51 million people with IQs below 85 and they show, like take race out of it, this is just Americans. It's like an American problem that he's trying to say. How do you create an equal society based off policies if people vary individually based off intelligence? And the society that we in is rewarding people that really had no bearing on this intelligence, meaning like there's a lottery at play, meaning like take the group shit out of it. There is a genetic role in the individual being smart. It's like 60+%. It's a hereditary component to it. So that's where the whole genetic lottery argument comes into play. Take race out of it. How do you implement policies to address just that simple shit that can cause gaps within individuals? You know what I mean? It's a tough question.
I can't. I can only. I hate to say this. I can only host this one. I cannot. I'm not well versed enough in this to participate. I'm assuming everybody. This isn't like or everybody kind of just doesn't feel like arguing, I guess. But I'm gonna end the stream, and if y'all want to talk about it, y'all can talk about it privately. But everybody on mute, and it ain't work because it's Saturday. I doubt everybody's at work on Saturday.
Let me ask this to everyone in the conversation. Do you all agree that in today's time, students should be graded on a curve? And if so, why?
Ask Fetty that. I'll be interested to see what he said. I don't really have an opinion on it. I think that because my opinion would be very kind of cold because I still got children in school. Like I think our son should be graded on the merit of what he did. I don't like the connotations of bell curves. I remember bell curves when I was in school, and I used to hate that shit, bro. That's just I'm just saying for me personally. This ain't a racial conversation. This is just me. I hated when I would get a high grade, but I pretty much would be great. You know what I'm saying? I just didn't.
But a racist, like a white nationalist, can use what we're talking about now to like segue into like DEI versus meritocracy. That's all I'm saying. And I think that's where I think people
they
like
can.
that, huh?
Yeah,
He said they
could.
could.
Yeah, because some people, yeah, because like the whole college admission thing and Asians feeling like the admissions process kind of singles them out for being smart, so they gotta lower standards for other people, and those people with the lower bar get admitted. So it's like a metric that they use that people feel is unfair if you're not a part of that minority that they're trying to bring up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, but you have a lot of, like, again, I uploaded a video of Sylvester Gates, smart brother, black physicist, and he doesn't like the fact that, you know, when you lower a standard for a black child in learning, again, he brought up the sports analogy of you have no room to do that shit you talk about. If you want to be great, you got to do X, Y, Z, and the standard shouldn't be lowered for that, especially off the basis you just trying to meet a quota versus trying to actually, you know, progress that person and make sure he's in the right environment to succeed. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and for me, my personal views always are going to conflict with my views for everyone, because I'm a person that thinks you learn in failure, or at least that's how it should be. I think, you know, when a game is over in sports, from at least what I was taught, you don't really learn a whole bunch from when you won. You learn more when you lost, so you can go back and assess, see what you need to do that could change. And then that would, to me, that's what in a capitalistic society, the society we live in, I think that's more effective sometimes for I guess that survival of the fittest kind of thing. But I understand how that would be kind of insensitive.
Remember, I brought up the case in the situation in Baltimore right now with the fact that certain the kids in Baltimore, it's you know, the statistics is that, you know, it's majority black, but this, you know, the whole them in math and English, they're at such a low bar, you know, automatically they have to point a finger. So it's a lot of controversy in a lot of places like Baltimore and certain inner city communities where they need to point the finger as to why these things aren't low. That's why, politically speaking, they do the shit that we talk about now, lowering standards just to meet a metric to say that, hey, we changed this, but in reality, you really didn't. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's deep, bro.
I see that's where the dangers come into talking about people. Because it's like, that's why I like to get into the institutions, because this conversation will automatically be slanted or taken and turned into a black thing. You know, we're not doing this for blacks. In actuality, I mean, I don't know. Mel, where you stand?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna take it back to like the teaching methods today. Like so students in classes years ago were kind of taught like how we're taught with professors. Like they were just taught to absorb all the information and just, you know, have the lectures, so to speak. That's not the best learning model, especially for students trying to learn information. You need interactivity. You know, we always either we were that child or we knew children who said, I need a hands-on approach to learning. You know, so today they operate with those models. They have project-based learning where children can engage. They have what they classify as flipped classrooms and things like that. They have, you know, make sure that the learning is cooperative between the students. So not only can they say, you know, they understand and maybe they can pass the test or quiz, but they actually can show it. You know what I'm saying? It's things have changed.
Yeah.
They're saying, someone in the chat just said this is Charlie Kirk's talking point. Somebody, I don't know whose talking point he was saying, but I hope they're saying that this is Charlie Kirk's talking point, that outside of the slavery or whatever, that we should, you know, you should fail to learn. I hope I didn't just say something Charlie Kirk.
No. Hey, Brass, that comment goes to what I was saying. If you bring up anything remotely dealing with, you know, something that doesn't feel, you're automatically going to be tied to extreme white nationalists. And I do hold those people accountable, because like y'all extreme views fuck it up for people who really trying to have a conversation. Because, you know what I mean? So it amazes me how I could be black, African American, talking about African American problems, and a nigga say, you repeating a white man talking point. That like blows my mind. It's like, you forgot I'm black, my nigga? Like, you forgot that I've had these experiences? Like, the shit tripped me out. Like, so.
All right. Well, I've already been called Charlie Kirk within 30 seconds of this conversation.
Shit crazy.
No, it's just, bro, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if this is the selfish thing. Isonic says this is an outdated, extreme racist talking point.
See what I'm saying?
Well, Isonic, you in the Discord. Explain that part. Like, I mean, but I don't know what is the outdated, extreme racist talking point. I mean, some of this is like, listen, I'm competitive to a certain extent. And in athletics, I'm taught you never lose, you learn. And that things that happen to you are always to your benefit, whether it's right or wrong, because you have the ability to learn from it. So for me, I would see, I'm the type of person, just a personal, just me, not the whole race, but I was a person that always, I would look at, like, if I failed the test, that would be not failed the test, but if I did not where I wanted to do on the test compared to the rest of the class, that would be more motivation for me, other than if I got a bad grade, you just gave, you gave me a B because that was everybody got a bad grade. I don't even know if I really want to be in a society of that. I don't even know if what I'm saying is ignorant, but I don't know if I want to live in a society like that.
Trophy shit, man. I don't like that shit.
Yeah, I'm not a participation trophy guy. But I don't know. I don't think then I had the thoughts of the socioeconomic statuses and all of that, saying, well, you got to have some participation in order to address those things. But Isonic is saying that's race realism. I don't even know what that means.
Again, most people who preach the environmental thing still ain't trying to address it. They trying to still ignore the fact that there's an IQ gap at all. So it's like, again, it's like a coach coming into a locker room and saying, y'all, we last in defense in the conference. And another coach saying, maybe we shouldn't tell them that. Da, da, da. It's like, I don't know.
He said maybe we should.
Maybe we shouldn't tell them that and just say, you know what, we're the best in the conference and just give a placebo effect. Like, fuck out of here. Sometimes you got to say the shit that hurt, or not even hurt, but you need in order to truly address the problem, bro. Because that's another thing. If the problem was addressed 20, 30 years ago, I wouldn't be talking about it at all. But the fact that you had people with earnest efforts that, again, lent out a lot of money to address this shit and nothing has really changed, I don't know what to say. Like,
all right. Well, I like I said, I'm not versed enough. I'll just be telling my personal opinions. Is something I advise other people not to do. So I can't have this conversation. I want to, but I can't lead this particular conversation. This is outside of my purview. I can just give you personal opinions, and personal opinions are sometimes when you're looking at a group of people, or us. I don't even say a group of people. When you're looking at us racially, it's insensitive. No, that I don't want to do. So I'm gonna wrap this particular show. I'm assuming everybody watching college football or playing college
football Saturdays, man.
Yeah, my team ain't playing just yet, so I think we might even have a bye. So I appreciate y'all. Shouts to the chat. Shouts to Chef. And the stream is ending now.